Topic is really very good because everybody knows that nowadays everything is revolving around the data, right? We are living in the world of IT. When we are living in the world of IT, entire things is revolving around the data. Data is coming from various sources, be it social media or maybe different kind of data. But now the concern is how this data needs to be managed, which is a very, very critical task. So in today's session, I'll be telling you what are the tools for research, what is statistical techniques in research, why do we need statistical tools in research, and what are the seven tools which is used for the statistical analysis, and what are the type of different methods. So I'll be explaining you, and then I think Anita Pati will take it in more depth. I'll be explaining you what is the role of statistical method in research. But before going into the depth, I would be really, tell you that what exactly is the statistical method. So statistical method is generally carrying out a study, right, which include planning, designing, collecting data, analyzing the data, and drawing the meaningful interpretation and reporting of the research findings, which is very important, right? So we have to start from the planning and then, of course, designing the layout and then collecting the data. This data collection, be it the primary data or the secondary data, it is again one of the very important tasks. But data collection is one important task, of course, but analyzing the data is again the most important factor. But how we need to analyze the data, how this data need to be interpreted, and then how we can draw the meaningful interpretation out of these research findings. Again, this is ultimately the whole things are revolving around the research. Basically, we call it as a research. So, but for doing the research, we need the statistical analysis, which gives meaning to your meaningless numbers, and which gives breathing life to a lifeless data. See, you have the data, but data is lifeless if it has not been analyzed properly. But then manual analysis cannot be done. We use even Excel also for doing the analysis, but then again, there are more advanced tools which is helping the researchers to convert their data into giving a data to a breathing life. But the point is, what are the tools of research? One of the most important tools for the research is case study. Every institution, be it a management institution or an IT institution or engineering institution, everyone is focusing toward the case studies. Case study is one of the very important tools for the research, and then we should have to have the checklist, interviews, observation sometime, and survey or questionnaires. These are the tools which is used to collect the data. I'm sure every researcher must be using this tool to collect the data. But then again, I'm saying the data collection is one important part, but then how we need to analyze this data, which is again most crucial and most important aspect to decide the tools for data collection, because research is carried out in different ways and for different purpose. So every research cannot be, every tool cannot be used for all type of research. It depends on what type of research you are doing, what is the purpose, and for what ways you are using it. But this is again very important to know that what are the different statistical techniques in research. There are different statistical methods. If I give you a definition of statistical methods, these are mathematical formulas, models, and techniques which is used in statistical analysis of raw research data, right? So initially, whenever a researcher going for a research, he has to use the raw research data, right? Data is in raw form, but then these data need to be analyzed by different techniques and different statistical analysis. Then statistical method extract the information from the research data and provide different ways to access the robustness of research output. Okay. Now the point is, why do we need statistical tool in research? So it is very important for a researcher to know the concept of basic statistical method used for conduct of his research study. Okay. So it is really very important for a researcher to know the concept of statistical method which they are going to carry for conducting their research studies. Sometimes bad statistic may lead to a bad research, and bad research may lead to an unethical practice, which I would really never recommend to any of the researcher to go for the bad practices, because once we are going to become a researcher, or we are the doctorate, or maybe we are going to become a research analysis, then of course we need to follow the ethical practices. So we should have to have an adequate knowledge of statistics and the appropriate use of statistical tools, which is again very important. And of course, the statistical test also. I'll be telling you what type of test you can carry while doing your statistical testing. But then generally, what are the major seven statistical tools which we use? I told you that one is check sheet, other is control chart, third is Pareto chart. I'm sure that everybody must be knowing about the Pareto chart. Histogram is there, cause and effect diagram, scatter diagram, and stratification. So stratification is basically the flow chart. We call it as run chart also. So these tools we use to carry our research, and then we use different kind of methods also. Generally there are five main methods. We call it as descriptive methods, analytical methods, inductive method, inferential methods, and applied method. So basically, if I talk about the most well known statistical tool, which is mean, the arithmetical average of numbers, medians and mode, range dispersion, standard deviation, interquartile range, coefficient of variations, and there are more software packages. SAS is also there, SPSS, MATLAB, which are useful in interpreting the result for large sample size. If your sample size is large, then I would recommend you to use these software packages named as SAS, SPSS, and for carry IT research, you can use MATLAB also. But nowadays, we all, management and IT faculties, are using analytical, marketing analytics, finance analytics, IT analytics, HR analytics. Why there is a need to use all these analytics into practices? Because the entire industry is working around the data. When you are having the data which is coming from spare sources and various sources, then this data need to be carefully analyzed. So that is why the role of analytics comes into practices. Now, what is the role of the statistical methods in research? I told you that the role of statistics in research is to function as a tool in designing the research, analyzing its data, and drawing the conclusion. So that research studies results in a large volume of raw data which must be suitably reduced so that the same can be read easily and can be used for further analysis. This point is to be very important to be noted, that whenever we carry any of the research, that research findings should always be used for further analysis. If your findings are not, that which is, used for further analysis, I do not consider it as a good research. But then we need to look out the different branches of statistics also, like descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. So both of these methods are employed in scientific analysis of data, and both are equally important for the students of statistics, be it a researcher or already the person who is involved into the research, because a researcher always involved into carrying out different kind of research all the times. But today I'll be explaining you more about that what kind of, what should be the element for the proper execution of analytics works, such as personnel, maybe laboratory facilities, what kind of equipments they require, what are the requirements we have already discussed. So before embarking upon the actual analytics works, one more tools required for the quality assurance of the work must be deemed very carefully to carry out the statistical operation to control and verify the analytical procedure. Okay, so I have told you that there are five main methods. We generally name it inferential methods, applied method, inductive method, analytical method, and descriptive methods. And then, if I say clearly, statistics are a tool, not an aim. So you need to understand these are the tools, not an aim, because your aim may be different, and what kind of tool you are using, that purely based on your aim of doing the research. So simple inspection of data without statistical treatment by an experienced and dedicated analyst may be just as useful as statistical figure on the desk of the disinterested. So that is why I'm saying statistics are a tool, not an aim. So basically, the value of statistics lies with organizing and simplifying the data to permit some objective estimate showing that an analysis is under control and that a change has occurred. If your data, I mean, whatever the data you've analyzed, which is not under control, or there is no any changes, so which is, I mean, equally important that the result of these procedures are recorded and can be retrieved. So these results should be recorded, and whenever you want, you can retrieve this record and you can do the reanalysis. So you must have seen that the researchers are doing the reanalysis of their own research. Why they are doing reanalysis of their own research? Because of course there are more changes required, or things are emerging as per the demand and supply. So accordingly, you do the analysis and make more changes and then record your procedures. But then, if when you are doing research and errors are coming, right? So what exactly is the error? Error is basically the collective noun for any departure of the result from the true value, like random or unpredictable deviations between replicates quantified with the standard deviation, which is we call it as a error basically, or systematic or predictable regular deviation from the true value, we call it as a mean difference. So basically the difference between the true value and the mean of replicate determination, we call it again as a error. Constant unrelated to the concentration of the substance analyzed, or we call it as proportionals, which is related to the concentration of the analytes basically. So the true value of an attribute is by nature indeterminate and often a very relative meaning. Okay, if I talk about accuracy, so accuracy is the trueness or the closeness of the analytical result to the true value. I already explained you what exactly is the true value. True value, right? So error is basically the collective noun for any departure of the results from the true value. And how we measure the accuracy? Accuracy is basically the trueness or the closeness of any analytical results to the true value. So it is constituted by a combination of random and a systematic error and cannot be quantified directly. So your test result may be a mean of several values or an accurate determination to produce a true quantitative value. We call it as a precise and free of basis. So again, while doing a research, accuracy, precision, and precise and free of biases again the most important aspect. But now the point is, what exactly is the precision? So precision is basically the closeness with which results of replicate analysis of a simple agree. So we call it as a measure of dispersion or scattering around the mean value. So I'm sure the student who are very good in doing this, OR or maybe research methods, technique they have already done. So they must be knowing these terms, what exactly is the accuracy, precision, and bias. Now, what exactly is the bias? So bias is the opposite, but most used measure for the trueness, which is the agreement of the mean of analytical results with the true values. So we call it as excluding the contribution of randomness represented in the precision. So there are different components which contribute to bias, like method bias, laboratory bias, sample bias, and different bias statistics are also there. If you have heard about bias, basic statistics, I mean, like mean, standard deviation, relative standard deviation, or coefficient of variation, I think Anita would be going to take it in detail, and then confidence limits of a measurement and propagation of measures. So now I'll be taking now what kind of statistical test you need to carry out while doing research. One is two-sided versus one-sided research. One is F test for precision, T test for bias, linear correlation and regression, analysis of variation, we call it as ANOVA. So ANOVA testing, I am sure everybody must be aware, because nowadays we are doing extensively the use of the ANOVA testing. There is again one T test for bias also. T-test could be for student T-test, one is coaching T-test, and T-test for large data sets if it is more than 30, or maybe pair T-test. So such kind of T-test you can carry while doing your research. So this is the gist which I was going, taking the introductory session, that what kind of research you can carry, what exactly is the statistical tool and how many tools are there how you have to carry your descriptive methods, I mean, analytical methods or inductive methods. Then what are the tools of research? What are the techniques? So I think now the detailed session would be taken by Anita Pati, who is the core uh, moderator, or maybe the researcher for the day. Thank you.